because what matters here for the SQ is simply understanding that the balance of your IQ and your EQ is what unlocks the gift of the SQ. Unlocking the gift and Siddhi of your SQ is a powerful moment on the golden path because it comes as a flood, the rush of unlocking energy. And it represents the flowering of our heart, the opening of our heart so that we can experience the world as it was intended to be experienced, with awe and love and gratitude. Interestingly though, we're not in direct control of that opening. And what I mean by that is, think about a time in your life where somebody or something happened and you immediately go to this place of disconnection or anger. So often it feels like it just snap and boom, we're there. And that is what I mean by we're not in direct control of that opening. Instead, what we do have control over are the two spheres that come before the SQ, what we're talking about today. And those two spheres are the IQ and the EQ. And when combined with the SQ, those three form this Trinity that essentially dictates how we interact with people, situations in the world. And what we do have direct and conscious control over is that IQ and EQ. And what your job is to balance those things. So your IQ, intellectual, your EQ, emotional. And we have defense strategies that we build with regards to both of those aspects of our life. And I'm not going to go deeply into how we build those defenses or how we unlock them, because what matters here for the SQ is simply understanding that the balance of your IQ and your EQ is what unlocks the gift of the SQ. So it's not like you need to put your attention here on this sphere and think about how can I raise the frequency, because that's just going to happen naturally when we get into this sweet spot in balance of these things. Now, this is what's called the pathway of breakthrough, is what leads out of the sphere of IQ into the sphere of SQ. And it's called that because, like I alluded to seconds ago, it comes as a flood. It's this rush of love that comes into your heart, and it can be so overwhelming. For me, it's this bittersweet feeling where I just feel so soft, and oftentimes I'll cry when this happens. And what we need to do is figure out, how can we break the dam? How can we allow that energy to come through our mind and through our emotions and hit our heart? And the answer to that is to go back into your childhood, to when you were 0 to 7 years old, and understand the patterns that dictated our lives. Understand the energy that our parents, by no fault of their own, remember, they had their own serving of the core wound to deal with, but they imprinted you with energy. And that energy really dictates how you see the world. And so going back and reflecting on that in a physical way. So physical contemplation is much different than mental or emotional contemplation. It's deeper. And when you are before 7 years old, especially let's say before 3 years old, we don't have memory in the way that we think of memory, right? We don't have this experience that we can recall, at least most people don't. But what we do have is this storage of sensation that is in our body. And physical contemplation is about tapping into that sensation and letting the words in your brain shut off and trusting that your body, your DNA knows what to do. And what happens when we do enough of that physical contemplation is we get this massive release in energy as we balance our IQ and our EQ, and we let the softness of our childhood, that feeling of delight and knowing that things were going to be okay, and loving to explore and learn and be in the dirt and go for a swim in the ocean. When we tap back into that, that is when we go from a feeling of isolation to a feeling of love. And what I mean by that is we built these pathways or these defenses that keep us safe, that keep other people at a distance. But when we first incarnated into this body, we didn't have those things. So somewhere along the way, we made a choice to go into isolation, to keep people at arm's distance because we couldn't take our heart hurting over and over again. And ultimately, that's why it closed off. And so our job is to break those defenses down and to start to allow that isolation to melt away. And what you'll find, what comes flying in when that dam breaks, is this love, this connectedness. And it's our job to use our relationships as fuel to continue to open up our heart. A lot of times we want to run away from our hard relationships, be that with a spouse or a child or a sibling, because we give the other person control over us, right? We decide that that person can do something to me that I don't like, or they can take something from me. And our work isn't to run away and go to an ashram in India so that we can come back and deal with that relationship, but instead it's to use that relationship as fuel to walk towards this pathway of love. There's no need to go anywhere. Everything that you need is right here in front of you. And as your heart opens, so your radiance shines through. And I think that's an important piece of the puzzle. When we look at our profile, remember it is hologenetic. And your radiance and your SQ are intimately linked. Going back to the activation sequence, it is the dealing with your life's work and your evolution that allow your radiance to shine through. Just like with the SQ, it's about the IQ and the EQ to shine through. And what you'll find is as your SQ begins to show and you feel that love in your heart, you'll feel the radiance. Other people will feel the radiance in your life. Your aura starts to carry this lightness, this joy, this peace that is palpable. And as your radiance shines through, we can get back to remembering delight. So the 0 to 7 year old development is the cycle of development that's tied to your SQ. Your 7 to 14 year old development is tied to your EQ, and 14 to 21 is tied to your IQ. And the gene key that dictates this 0 to 7 year phase is the 46 gene key, which is the shadow of seriousness, the gift of delight, and the Siddhi of ecstasy. And that is your natural state of being. You are delighted with the world, everything that you watch, everything that you eat, the way that the birds fly, it's all new to you. And it's this feeling of awe. It's this feeling that things are as they're meant to be. And there's so much for you to do and learn and see and be. And as we grow, we start to interact with things that flavor that delight a little bit differently. And maybe we think to ourselves, perhaps the world isn't all delight. Perhaps the world contains some pain, and then more pain, and then this shutting down because the pain begins to overwhelm the delight. And so we need, when we're thinking about our SQ, to come back to this feeling of freedom, this feeling of openness, this feeling of wanting to engage in the world, because when we do that, that's what allows our heart to open. Your SQ dictates your mythology. And what I mean by that is your IQ is your psychology. So your mental view of the world, how you think about the world. Your EQ is your ideology. Our ideology is more about our emotional picture of the world. It's the beliefs that we hold with things pertaining to love, kindness, peace. It's kind of our emotional model that allows us to function in the world. And then we get our mythology, which is what the SQ is all about. And mythology is understanding archetypes, understanding that your journey on this planet is a mythic one, that you have a path that you are designed to walk, the hero's journey, if you will. And what our SQ does is it allows us to have a bit of space. It allows us to see that the things that are happening to us in the story, in our lives, are things that are designed to help us tame the dragon and be the hero. And when you can see life from a distance, when you can see that you're a character playing a part, it allows you to know what the ending of the story is going to be. And when you know what the ending of the story is, you're much better able to deal with the obstacles along the way. A good movie is going to have a boss fight. You're going to fight the dragon. You're going to fight the evil king. And it wouldn't be the movie without having these periods of being tested and struggle and strife. And it also wouldn't be the movie if it didn't end in beauty and love. And so when you think of your life on a mythic level, you're able to keep your heart open. We're able to allow the gift and the Siddhi of our SQ to stay present. When you forget that mythology, when you forget this delight, there is a simple solution, and that is to remember that everyone else is on this same journey with you, and they forget sometimes that they're on a mythic path. What you can do is be of service. Help other people to remember. Help other people to reopen. Because all of us have gone through this pain of being in delight and having to shut our hearts down because we continue to be hurt over and over again. And remember, you can't control your reopening. So the best way the best thing I know to do to reopen is to share with the world. Share your creativity, share your gifts, share something small, right? We oftentimes think of this big, giant, I need to create this organization that serves 1 million meals for people. But it can be as simple as doing the dishes for your spouse unexpectedly. And just that small thing helps them to remember that they are loved and they are cared for. And that is going to reflect back on you. And gradually your heart begins to thaw and it begins to open yet again. Lastly, let's talk about the 6 lines of the SQ. So all the spheres have 6 lines that flavor how the gene key is played through that particular sphere. And these 6 lines are really the same energy across every sphere. However, because each sphere represents something different, they have a slightly different flavor, a slightly different way of showing up in the world. So the first line of the SQ needs certainty. And this is what I want you to think of these words as, is what you needed when you were in that 0 to 7-year-old phase of life. And remember, we're going back to remember this delight, to open our heart. We have to go back to that phase. So these are still things that you need. And the first line needs certainty. It needs rhythm and routine. It needs to know that it is whole. It needs to know that they have all of the parts and pieces already. The second line is about wildness. It's about freedom. It's about needing to go out and explore, to crawl close to the fire, to run on the beach, to do everything that allows you to feel like you are not in a cage, not stuck. And school just robs this from people. Man, if you're a second line, it's hard to maintain that feeling of wildness when you're forced to sit at a desk all day long. And so your job is to reclaim that, to do whatever you need to do to open that wild heart, to feel free yet again. Third line is pleasure. Third lines are all about experience. They're all about needing to try and do different things. So this third line needs adventure. The third line needs understanding because it needs to try so many things. Some of those things aren't going to work. And what the third line needs is somebody to say, it's okay, go and try again. The fourth line needs belonging. Remember, the fourth line is all about community. It's all about love. It's all about kinship. And belonging here is more than just a nuclear family. This is belonging in a tribe, belonging in a community. It needs to be around people that it trusts and that it knows and that it understands. And it's the interweaving and working of those energies that help the heart to open for a fourth line. Fifth lines are all about power. They're all about influence. And so what a fifth line needs is mentoring. It needs a role model. It needs someone to show them what they are capable of. Because the other side of the fifth line is that it can be manipulative and it can do a lot of damage. And so fifth lines need to understand why they're here. They need to see the footsteps of somebody who has walked in front of them to know what is possible and to know what they're capable of. And then once they see that, they can flavor it in their own lives. The sixth line, the final line, is patience. Remember, the sixth line journey is a totally different journey. It is the long-term journey. It is the line of vision. It is the line of seeing into the future. And so what these six lines need is time and space to develop, to think, to build a model of the world that they understand. Because everyone else's model to a sixth line is missing a piece. Because they're not thinking far enough out. They're not seeing the big picture or what is really and truly important. I want to just finish by saying that I am not a Gene Keys coach. I do not do anything for money in this realm. This, for me, for now, is about sharing what I've learned along the way to be of service, to help to open or keep my heart open. This is my way of talking about things that truly matter to me in the world, which is my service for now. So keep that in mind. Take everything I say with a grain of salt because I could be wrong. I don't know any more than you know. All I know is that I don't know.